Guys, welcome to another episode of Rennch. On today's show, we're going to continue to work on this 1976 Porsche 912E Backdate, and I'm going to update you on a couple other projects around the shop. All right, guys, here's this 1976 Porsche 912E, which came with all of 90 horsepower. What we're doing here is backdating it, so it looks like a 1964 through 1973 911. I've also added some flares in the back. They still have to be welded on. Once that's all done, I'm going to drop the engine and start the process of doing a Subaru 3-liter 6-cylinder swap, the EZ30R swap into this car to go from 90 horsepower to hopefully around 300 horsepower. And I'm very anxious to get this backdate done because this is going to be the first iteration of my Subaru kit that I'm selling. So if you have a 911 or 912 shell, or maybe you need a rebuild, or you want to build a race car and you want a car that is reliable and has a modern engine, that's what my kit is for. But this is going to be the first iteration of the kit, so I'm going to take you guys through it. What I did on the last episode is I fit this front latch panel, and that allows this long hood to bolt right down to the car. And that's what it looks like. Isn't that thing pretty? Look at that nice long hood. And what I've got to do today is I had to cut the wire that is attached to the cable that releases this hood. So I've got to install a new cable and make sure the thing latches the way it's supposed to. Once it does, then I can actually weld in the front panel because I know the alignment's going to be right and it will work. Now then, heading this way, two things. Number one, check out this super badass new welding cart I got from Harbor Freight. This thing stores everything you need. I picked up a stud welder as well. I've got a new helmet in there, a bunch of spares. I've got my gloves. I've got my spare stuff. This thing's great. It even organizes all your TIG stuff. So when all that stuff comes in, I'll be able to organize what goes where. Super psyched for that. I've got a new TIG welder coming my way, and I've got a space for it now and a spot for all of my welders. It even holds 2 bottles, one for MIG, one for TIG. So this thing's on sale now until the end of the month, so I decided to bite the bullet and go for it. Now, I'd mentioned the other day that I'd stolen that hood for this car, and you'll notice now this car ain't got no hood. What happened was I was driving 70 miles an hour. My hood wasn't fully latched, I think. The entire thing went wabow and hit my windshield while I was on the freeway, and I couldn't see anything. So I have massive damage here to my cowl on each side, and the hood, hilariously, looks like this. You can't even tell, but it's just got a bunch of waves in it on each side. It's just a totally dented, trashed hood. And here's what's crazy about all this. So I had reached out to Getty, which makes probably the best fiberglass and carbon fiber parts for these early 911s. And I said, hey man, I want to get a carbon fiber hood for the Gray Ghost. He said no, he would not sell it to me unless I bought the front fenders that went with it, because he said something about they build up the edges a little bit so that they mesh really well. And if you just get the hood by itself, it can stick up like 1/8 of an inch from the bodywork. And he just refused to do it. And I thought that's really weird. So I ordered an aluminum hood from Auto House, Arizona. So that should be here in a few days, and I will go through the hood fitting process on that car. But today it's about this bad boy. I want to jump right into it and see if we can get that cable replaced, get this thing latched up, and hopefully get this thing welded up today. If I can do that and have a little bit of time, I might have a bit of a bonus like I did in the last episode. One more thing I wanted to show you before I started was a little bit of a garage hack. I've got my sockets in this top drawer, and I feel like I'm always looking for 10s and 13s when I work on Porsches. So what I did is I went to Amazon and I ordered a giant pack of 10s and a giant pack of 13s. And then I got these organizers. So instead of having all the sockets laid out like this, because sometimes it's really hard to see what the numbers are, I just put these little organizers and decided, hey man, let me mark them like that. 10s, 11s, 12. So I've got basically 7 through 19. And much easier just to turn around and grab a 13 from here than it is to figure out which one is in order. So I'm actually going to do the same thing with my wrenches in here. I've got a whole bunch of these organizers from Amazon. If you want, I can link them up in the description below. And I'm psyched about it. Like, these things really can organize your life. And I do find that if I am really organized, my garage stays a lot cleaner when I'm in the middle of working. So that's why I did it. It's the old cable. This is the old cable, which was a little bit too short after I did the new front end. So we got another one. Thank you, as always, to Pelican Parts for being local and having everything. So you just get the cable. The other thing I highly recommend if you have one of these vintage Porsches, if you don't care about being like completely authentic, is one of these nut and bolt kits from Bolts and Nuts. Class 8.8, zinc coated. Like, I used a billion of them on the Blasphemy build. I really love these. I think they fit great. I will also link these up in the description if you guys are interested. Right now I'm just tightening the cable in the latch mechanism. I still have to weld it to the front latch panel, but I need to make sure the thing works first. Thankfully they give you plenty of cable. Well, I might have to weld this first because, well, maybe I can clamp it because it needs to be stable. Okay, so this guy's being a little tricky because it's completely separated from the body right now. Every time I pull it, the whole thing moves, and it can't do that and still properly release this. So I'm gonna have to try to put just a little tack weld right here and get the thing on so I can properly adjust this and we can see if the hood actually works. Process can take hours, by the way, to adjust the hood. This can be a really arduous task, but it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to right now. I'm going to try to move this in just a little bit and try to kind of sneak up on it a little. I could use a little adjustment on the actual hood here. So I'm going to do what I just did, which seemed to work really well. Okay, after about 30 minutes of fiddling, I got this hood to close, and it's certainly close enough for me to start welding this panel in. One thing about this side is I think I need to hammer this corner a little bit more to allow this fender to tilt in a little bit, but all is very sort of hood adjustable as it's very tight on this side. So I can easily move it over a couple of mil. But it came out great. Yeah, I'm ready to go, I think. What I'm gonna do here is pull the fenders back off because it'll just be easier to hammer the stuff and see if I can get a few tacks into this front panel. So I made a significant mistake here, and that mistake was not grinding all the paint away under where these welds are. Consequently, I'm getting like flames and the paint's catching on fire and it's not welding very well. So if you do this, make sure before you insert this very difficult piece, make sure you grind the paint away so you get some nice clean welds when the time comes. And don't suffer the same fate that I am right now. So what I'm having to do is basically start welding the panel first so I get an arc and then put it into the middle so it kind of melts the paint, which is kind of the opposite of what you're supposed to do. I typically start in the middle and then work my way around to the outside, and it makes for a very nice weld. Cannot do that this time. The other thing I'm doing though, which is good, is while the weld is still hot, I'm hammering it and getting a nice flat weld so I don't have to grind quite as much when the time comes. Okay, so my camera battery died as I was welding and cleaning this thing up. This is one side, totally done. So it's welded, it's dressed. I'll probably spray a little primer or something on this. And then I have to get my way down to the bottom row here, which is actually inside the car. So I've got to clean up all of this undercoating under here and then begin the process of welding on the inside of this thing. All right, so I've got it all dressed up. Just threw a quick coat of paint on it so it didn't flash rust overnight. Used my favorite roll bar and chassis paint. This whole thing is gonna get undercoated, so I'm not super worried about, making it completely perfect. But yeah, there you go, guys. That is a almost completely installed front latch panel. All right, guys, meet Mark. Mark is the owner of said 912E. And first and foremost, how are you feeling about being the first full Lacestern kit swap?
I'm pretty stoked about it. After hearing that audible of that Subaru ripping up the hill, I'm pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, you should. So Mark came up here so we can remove the engine from the 912E. He's got most of the stuff disconnected right now. I think there's one bolt holding the transmission back on. So I've got this thing up on my quick jacks, and we're gonna put a little kind of a cradle dolly underneath the engine, lower the quick jacks, unbolt everything, and then hopefully raise the quick jacks, and we have an engine on a pallet. So we're gonna get right into that. Let's go.
Do it.
She's dropping, she goes. It could be that, that last one could be the starter.
Should be. Ladies and gentlemen, and away we go.
No acting. Yeah, there it is. All right, after a bit of a large challenge with my quick jacks needing a bleed, we got this thing on some jack stands, and as you saw, got the engine out. We also did a little bit of testing. Very worried to see if the doors were rusty in the front. This door looks amazing. This door also Looks amazing. And on a whim, I decided to try to take care of some of the surface rust on the roof, which does not look at all amazing. This actually goes all the way through into the cockpit. I have no idea how a Porsche roof rusts in this 90-degree thing. Maybe there's something on top of it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there's something wet on top of it. Who knows? But that is going to have to be addressed. Nevertheless, once this is done, I can focus my attention on the rear flares and get those dialed, and we are one step closer to the engine install. Let's get back to this front panel welding, which is almost done. I've got like a third of it done here. Just like everything, it's time intensive. It's just welding and tapping and welding and tapping and welding and tapping until it's all dialed. Well, as you can see here, the front end came out great. I'm super psyched about it. It is now time to move to the back end of the car, where you'll see I have a bit of surprise. The engine came in, so I did a quick little fit up to see if it fit the way I hoped it would. It does. And the next thing I'm gonna do in the next video is TIG weld these rear flares. So I'm going to TIG them. Hopefully it's going to come out the way I envision it will. But once the flares are on, we can actually focus on doing this engine swap, which I'm so stoked about. As always, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. We'll talk to you next time.